All right, welcome back for another episode of HXT 212. So today I'm joined by Sophie Spitzer, and she's a founder and CEO of Kinisi. You know, I've built this podcast in the mindset of exploring new ideas, to see what's next, to see and to talk to people about innovation, about what's trendy, and to see what people are building, what the future about. Okay, and I had this kind of curiosity around psychedelics and mental health as well, which I believe is a very important topic nowadays. So I invited Sophie for the podcast. And to give you an introduction, Sophie, she's actually a system architect. She spent a decade building infrastructure, such as a pandemic response systems that coordinate 30 million PCR tests, entrepreneur education programs that reach 11,000 teenagers across Austria. That's a massive one, and the leadership development in tech and startups. And a few years ago, she had a realization: the most important infrastructure we're missing isn't a technological one, actually. It's a human one. It's the systems and conditions we need to help people actually transform. And that's a very important one. And that insight led her to psychedelics, not because she's spiritual or trendy, even we can talk about it later, but because she's an engineer asking how do we design the conditions for real lasting change. And today she runs Kinisi, which offers one-to-one legal Psilocybin journeys paired with rigorous coaching and integration. And she also heads Psy Standard, working to set verification standard for how this work is done across Europe, which I believe is also very important to set up some structure. So she doesn't believe in shortcuts. She believes in building systems that actually work. So Sophie, welcome to HXT 212.
Hi Thibault. Great to be with you.
Excellent. So my name is Thibault Catala. I'm the founder of Catala Consulting, and this is HXT 212.
HXT 212.
All right. So I want to understand better about what is psychedelic. What do they do? What they cannot do? What they can do? What it can help? As well, what coaching matter? As well, why integration is such an important topic, and if this could become a new model of medicine. So today, that's why I also invited you, because I want to explore this. Okay. First of all, because you saw in the introduction that you came from a different background, and how did you arrive in this work, which is totally different?
Yeah. To this day, I actually sometimes can't believe that my family now thinks that I'm dealing with drugs. Just to, already put out the stigma there, which is clearly not true, not the case. Mm-hmm. But how I stumbled across it, and it's so interesting on multiple layers. But the thing that I really never get tired of pointing out is that behind the thing that I rejected the most, that I was most afraid of in my life, lay my future career path, lay the foundation of what I'm now thinking is actually the start of my career. Mm-hmm. So we have to go back a little, and I always ask people, do you want the long or the short version? I think we have quite some time, so I'm gonna opt for the middle version. And basically, my journey to psychedelics started when I was 15. Okay. I was at my first exchange semester in the US. It was my biggest dream to be able to be there. My parents could, barely afforded me to go there, and I was there, and it was, I was just so full of happiness that this worked. And then 2 weeks into being in this new high school on a different continent, a person came up, then was gonna be a friend, and she was like, Sophie, do you smoke? And I was like, interesting. Teenagers in the US, she said, so do you want to smoke? Let's meet on the weekend. And I was like, interesting. Teenagers in the US smoke only on the weekends? Like, coming from Austria with 15, you know how to smoke a cigarette, most, I guess, back in my day. And I was like, okay, sure, let's meet. I want to make friends, and I can smoke a cigarette with you. So turns out that I was there on the weekend, and it was not a cigarette, which I only realized after having smoked this marijuana joint like a cigarette. Okay. And at this point, I didn't know what marijuana was. I had no idea. And I collapsed, I fainted, and I lost consciousness. And I still get goosebumps when I think about it, because I, at 15, different continent, no parent, biggest life dream, and when I woke up, I couldn't believe what happened. And the thing that, like, I really thought I was going to die. So this moment was so deeply traumatic for me that it really ingrained in my nervous system that ever since that moment, which I obviously survived, with the terrible night, to be frank, I never touched anything anymore. Of course, I was accustomed to alcohol and cigarettes, which are not drugs, but exactly. But yeah, so I for all my life growing up, I was the person who said I would rather die than take substances. Like, no way. And I would also cut friends out of my life that started doing it, and. But the second layer to this story is that I didn't just not touch it, but I had revolved a trauma around it. Every time I saw people on TV doing drugs, I got a panic attack.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that this wasn't normal. For me, everyone gets that. And yeah, so it was only until I met my now fiance that things changed. Okay. Which is around about 3.5 years ago. And I also always think it's so funny, when I met my fiance, I started taking drugs, okay. Which is also, just a pointed way of speaking about how, society views this, which is absolutely not the case fundamentally. And we started talking about psychedelics, and psychedelics here specifically, I'm referring to mushrooms. So maybe to also already bring in, what are psychedelics? So there are two forms of psychedelics. There are classical psychedelics like psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, magic truffles, LSD, or ayahuasca, DMT. So these are the classical. And then there are non-classical psychedelics, which are now more in use, like the anesthetic ketamine or the enactogen MDMA. So but now I'm specifically referring to psilocybin, so magic mushrooms. And my fiance realized, okay, wow, she really has a trauma around this. Like, we can't even talk about this. But he also had the feeling, Sophie is so interested in psychology. She's so interested in the psyche, right? Maybe it's something for her.
Okay.
And then he'd with baby steps, my nervous system could not hold more than 10 minutes of YouTube content on drugs. I needed to close the laptop always because I couldn't hold it anymore.
It was a big trauma then. It was
Yeah. And that's because, now I talk about it, but I couldn't even talk about it 3.5 years ago. So I also this is also why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing right now, because I understand what it is to be on the other side. I was on the other side. And so then as the life headed, shortly after Leo, my fiance, he baby step introduced me into the theoretics of it, and I also understood frameworks like the David Nutt chart, for example. Great chart. Maybe you can link it also in the show notes. Is by Professor David Nutt. He's one of the world's leading researchers on it, and you see drugs, harm done to self and harm done to others based on drugs. Guess what number one is?
I don't know.
Alcohol is the worst.
That's okay. So I'm not surprised.
And there are 10 listed, and the least one, mushrooms.
Is it? Okay.
Is it? Yeah. It's crazy. And going into my first psychedelic journey, this was what I had in mind. I was like, there are researchers that do this, I trust them. There are thousands. There's science, I was holding on to science so hard. So in my first journey, I was really, of course I was informing myself, but for me, it was really overcoming this deep-rooted fear of dying. For me, taking a substance equaled dying. So the first journey was just about being brave and overcoming my biggest fear in life. And again, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because I'm still to this day so proud of the moment. For months before, I was conditioning myself like athletes. I'm going to take it and I'll be fine. I'm going to take it and I'll be fine. And I took it and I was fine. And I still remember, doing this mental clap when I took it, and I was like, okay, now it started, it's over. In my mind, the thing was done, but of course it only then started. Yeah. And yeah, as you already read in my introduction, I've always been interested in systems change. I've always had this like impact at heart, but it never truly felt like that's it.
Okay.
And when in my first psychedelic journey, experienced what I experienced, in that moment already, I knew this is what I want to bring into the world.
Okay.
That's it. And yeah, that's when it started.
Very interesting. You're a bit like the the Batman. You know Batman, because Batman is called Batman and is disguised as a bat because he's super scared of bats.
Yeah.
So he made his biggest fear as his biggest strength, and that's, I think that I will call you Batman.
I'm taking that. Thank you. I have a new nickname. I love it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I see how it can be built, and how you had this kind of realization that it was actually quite healing behind, and you were as well looking into the science. So I believe there is also this stigma around it, that there is a psychedelic for entertainment and psychedelic for healing as well. Can you explain the difference between the two, and is it still the case?
Yeah. So, as with all things in life, and that's also one of the biggest things I've learned in my past years, is it's all about intentions. It's all about why you do what you do.
Okay.
And to give you an example, somebody can be at a party, at like, let's say a rave. I think that's a good example, where there's like really beautiful ambient music. Somebody can take a mushroom to go party, to go crazy, the intention is to party, and then people do it. They take it. It's for some, not for everyone, of course. Also an important point I'm gonna make in a second. But you can take it for party if your intention is to party. Another person can take exactly the same amount, exactly the same substance at this rave and say, I want to go deep. I want to dance and be with myself today and just release whatever I want to release. And this can be therapeutic then.
Okay.
So it really is about the intention. At the same time, I want to say that there is, of course, a very clear case, and I would always advocate for people to, especially if they do it for the first time, to do therapeutic, and I need to explain therapeutic also in a moment, or more healing journeys in a safe environment. Like, clearly I'm not saying take mushrooms on a dance floor and think that you're going to be healed. No, clearly not, right? You have to approach this in maximum safety. I can speak to this in a moment if you want to, but the core point I want to make, the differentiation is primarily intention, and also this is how you can guide when you go into a professionally held psychedelic journey with a coach or a therapist. You can guide your intention. Like, your intention is like a compass. Yeah. What do you want to shed light on? What do you want to see? Yeah.
No, I think that's important that you mentioned this, because they are psychedelics. When you go to first of all, it's very important to mention that most of the substances that you mentioned are sometimes illegal in some countries. Yeah. So there are some specific countries which are a bit more flexible around the medicine and not the drug as a party drug, but more like a medicine. So there is that's very important to mention.
Yeah, let me maybe. So basically, psychedelics, or these substances in a not clinical setting, are illegal almost everywhere. So by default, you can think it's illegal, except for the Netherlands. Okay. So in Europe, except for the Netherlands, there are some exceptions also in the US, but in the Europe case, it's only fully legal in the Netherlands. And here, psilocybin truffles, so not mushrooms, but truffles. It's actually interesting legal loophole. Everything that is above ground is forbidden, but everything that is below ground is okay. Okay. Yes, and psilocybin truffles, like, they have the same active ingredient. The one is just above ground, the other one is below. So like it is illegal in non-clinical settings. But in clinical settings, now more and more legalization happens. And here, for example, just to quickly cover this, like, really, really amazing thing that happened in 2025, which is Germany for the first time granted a compassionate use program. So for people that are in dire need for these treatments, now can get special access. I mean, it's super limited, but in the Clinic Mannheim and in the Ovid Clinic in Berlin, of course, you have to go through a rigorous process, but these medicines really are, and here the intention is medicine, are being used in Europe, and that was really groundbreaking.
I think that's evolving, and we can say the society is starting to embrace it a bit more, to be more and more curious. There's still a lot of taboo and stigma around it, I believe.
Of course.
But it's getting there. And what you refer to is mostly the psychedelic assisted coaching as well.
Correct.
Can you tell me a bit more about what exactly it is?
Mm-hmm. So here we have to differentiate, and that's what I just meant about therapy, right? So I'm really cautious with the word therapy because when we think about therapy, in a classical sense, there's a diagnosis and there's a goal, right? And PAT, psychedelic assisted therapy, is only pertaining to clinical settings, which is only in clinical trials right now, which is interestingly also the main source where people now get access to these treatments in a safe setting. Anything that is not in a clinical setting, I personally always refer to as coaching. So I think we should go with coaching now, because that's also where my company is. But basically there is therapeutic frameworks that are being used, but you should not call it therapy because it's not classical therapy, right? So but retreats, for example, do coach these coachings, psychedelic assisted coaching or one-on-one, like Kinisi. So
And can you explain a bit more the role of the substance itself versus the role of the coach as well? You see?
Beautiful question. They really go hand in hand. The coach is such an important factor of a guided psychedelic journey. And a recent study in Medical Nature magazine, you can link it below. Actually, this April came out where they asked 185 practitioners, MDs, clinical, non-clinical, underground, what are the main factors what are the main factors that
help
the outcome? Thank you. That help the outcome. And number one is therapeutic alliance, which is the rapport you feel with your coach. Why? When you are in a psychedelic state, you are, and I'm simplifying this extreme, you are very open. And the number one thing, and this is also what Kinisi is built on, is you need safety. You need safety and nervous system safety. And how do you get that? We're social animals. It's about co-regulation. It's about attunement. So your coach, if the coach is attuned, they will be your safety net in the moment. So it's not just about the preparation phase where you go into your topics that when you want to talk about, your maybe your trauma timeline, etc. But it's really about feeling safe. And I think it's also logical to think if you feel safe, you can let go more, and then you have deeper outcomes.
I understand.
So
that's interesting because it's very similar to, I've done some coaching as well. I've done some, I had some people helping me on the coaching side without any substance. Is it similar? And what the substance can do more than just simple coaching? You see what I mean? Did you see the difference between those two? Or what the substance will bring more than just a coaching or regular therapy?
Of course. So that is also a great question, and I need to expand a little here because we need to go into neurology, neurochemistry. So also super simplified terms. When you take I'm specifically referring to psilocybin now, magic mushrooms, truffles. When you take that, your brain is basically flooded with something like serotonin. And serotonin, we have hormones in our bodies, neurotransmitters, and serotonin is here for mood regulation, for perception, but also satiation. And many other things, right? They never just have one way of working. And what that causes in your brain is that your default mode network, maybe you've heard of this before, the activity of that is tremendously reduced. And what that does, so basically when we are in our brains, very simplified, work in two modes. Either you're in the focus mode, you focus on something, or you're in the default mode when you're like under the shower, daydreaming, etc. But in this default mode, we have like the automations, but we also have the depression, the anxiety, the looping, the rumination. So when you reduce the default mode network, your brain, when you reduce the noise of the default mode network, your brain can actually think, not clearly, but many people say it's like a breath of fresh air. All this like negative self-talk, this is also autobiographical. I had this happen to me in the past. It's reduced. So you're basically moving away a little from your ego, from your sense of identity. And that talk therapy is or coaching is very hard to get there, if at all. Okay. So your patterns of identity are loosened up. So if you, a lot of times when you're stuck on something, you can't see your way out because you are stuck. And when you take psychedelics, it loosens up. It gets more flexible. You also have a lot of more divergent thinking, higher cognitive flexibility. You can be, you see things from a completely different angle. And one other thing that I want to mention here, just
before you go there, because I feel that we can touch this kind of feeling, because I got all my ideas under the shower or when I run, you see, and I feel that, I don't know why, but every time I go running, I come back here and I have like thousands of ideas. Beautiful. So it's like this kind of creative thing. So I feel the same thing here. That's something similar, I guess. No.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, especially like if you get in the state in a flow state, for running. I mean, when you run, when you do sports, other things also happen, endorphins, etc. But that's when you really get out of your head, quite literally. And that or breath work. I think I know you do breath work. Yes. You can also reach psychedelic states through breath work with different mechanisms, but you can also get there. So you don't always need the substance, but in the question, coach with psilocybin versus coach without psilocybin, it's a pretty clear case what the substance does. Okay. And I mean, I would really just love to add here another thing, which is called, and this is also, I think, specifically interesting for entrepreneurs, people, who really like rigid control, I need to, achieve. Another thing that happens, a lot of things happen, but another thing is thalamocortical filtering. And that's a pretty mouthful, but the thalamus in our brain is responsible for sensory input. Like it's a filter, right? So what we perceive, I think, we know we cannot perceive everything, otherwise we would be overwhelmed all the time. So we have a filter, a preconditioned filter that also, shapes our worldview. And what happens on psychedelics is the thalamocortical filtering is reduced, which means sensory input can come easier in and easier out. This might lead to some overwhelm for some people, but if held well by a coach, everything is stabilized. But why I really want to mention this is because a lot of people, not just entrepreneurs or founders, are so stuck in their emotions. They're so stuck in their patterns, and they're so rigid about things they've been pressing down their entire life, right? Just so you don't have to deal with it. And in that state, all this like dirt, not all, but there is the potential for this to surface and be released because the filters are open.
I see.
And that in itself is tremendously healing. I always refer to it as like emptying the trash can. Everything like at the bottom, and you can, if done right, if in a safe setting, it really has the potential to empty the trash can.
And sometimes, like you mentioned the trash can, can we not be aware that we have trash? You see what I mean?
Of course. And that's what your ego does to protect you, to protect your identity. Yes. I mean, I know I'm talking big words, right? Ego. And I mean, ego also, when I refer to ego, I don't mean like, I am the best, but I'm referring to your set identity, your sense of self.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that is very rigid for many because it gives us stability.
Interesting. And can you as well, I've heard this kind of difference between a guide, a coach, and what do you call this? A shaman. What's the difference between those three?
So, a guide and a coach, I would say, is a different word for the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's a person. We use these terms more in the Western world. So it's a person that is supporting you throughout your journey. That can be, a guide. If we're really technical about the terms, a coach we think might have a coaching license, right? So I would say coach has a coaching license and a guide might have one but doesn't have to. But in theory, they do the same thing. They sit with you, hold you in safety. A shaman is a indigenous name for a person that is equipped with certain capabilities and that has a certain standing in their society. So it's really, it is distinctly different. Like, I think that the differentiation we want to get here is indigenous culture versus westernized approach. Yeah, so that's the difference. So if you are...
So there are no shaman in Europe?
There are shamans that travel.
Okay.
And shamans, they come from lineages, they come from long traditions, and a shamanic process, in my understanding, is involving the shaman a lot more because the shaman is a transportation medium. They help you interpret things. Versus in the more Western world, a coach is here to sit with you. And their primary goal is to not interfere at all, like to just hold the space for you. And the shaman imposes their culture on you, but that's what they do. Right?
That has different benefits or risk? Like, you will have a different experience if you do it with a guide or if you do it with a shaman, for example?
Such important question. Thank you for that. Yes, 100%. So I have not yet experienced an experience with a shaman. But what I can tell you is that, and that's actually one of the main reasons also why I founded Kinisi, is because now that the industry is getting more traction, there's so much charlatanerie, I don't know how to say it in English, like scams happening. And the amount of harm you can produce within one session is unthinkable. I personally know of 3 cases that ended in suicide after a specifically shamanic journey that was done by a fake shaman who claimed to be a shaman, was not, and then could not give the support and help the person needed. And the person, could not deal with it any longer and was returned to a home that apparently, it was just unbearable. Because, and that's really what also maybe at this point we should really, really state here, that psychedelics are insanely powerful and helpful tools, but at the same time, insanely dangerous. So if you don't do it correctly, the damage can be irreversible. I wouldn't say irreversible, but for some people, it might be irreversible. And that to me is just mind staggering, how people are out there just, performing like shamanic journeys where they have no idea and harm people. And that is also why now with the Psy Standard, I have a fantastic team. We're building European framework for safe psychedelic practice. We verify practitioners to ensure that these things don't happen.
I think that's very important. To mention as well, there's some danger linked to it, and we can go on it a bit later. But can you as well walk me through the full arc of the experience? Like, how does it start? Like, you have the substance, and then what's going on before and after as well.
So to me personally, every good psychedelic coaching experience starts already at least 1 month before. So you really start getting to know your coach. You have intention setting. Why do you do it, right? What's going on in your life? Because also your physique might be healthy. On the surface, everything might be fine. But there are also personal contraindications, not just medical, that it might not be the right time. Maybe a huge catastrophic event just happened, or you want to find a quick fix, then you shouldn't do it. Right. But given that everything is okay, you are cleared, medically cleared, then you continue. You already start 1 month in ahead, preparation time, super important. And then you go deep and already understand what are your motives, why you want to do this. It's really self-exploration. And then when you do the journey, it's usually over 2 days. So we now speak about one dosing, like one-time dosing. Some do 2 dosings, but I'm speaking about one-time dosing. Usually, let's say it's over a weekend. So you arrive on Friday, then you groove in, you do some breath work or some body work. I'm a huge fan of somatic work. So for me, so these really need to be combined because a psychedelic experience is inherently a somatic experience. And you really want to wind down. No phone, ideally no coffee, no bad food, and then good night rest. And then on the day, we call it also the dosing day, you ideally don't eat breakfast, so the substance gets absorbed better. And then you are with your coach, and the surroundings are super, super important. So here we call it set and setting. Maybe you've stumbled across that. So set is really your mindset, and we've prepared this all along this month of preparation, right? So you're in a good mindset, and it's okay to have respect. It's okay to be a little scared, right? That's normal, especially if it's your first time, but you shouldn't be panicking about it. And that's also, where the coach is there to guardrail you. Exactly. And then, you do some breath work or, grounding, meditation. Really depends on what you want to do. And, the set. So this was the mindset. And then the setting. So the setting is the surrounding. Safe space, beautifully, with mattresses, greenery, maybe flowers. So really where your nervous system can feel good. And then you take the truffle. And how we do it at Kinisi is that we boil the truffle. So you actually prepare your own truffle, then you put it in I put hot water on it, put some lemon in it as well, because that helps you absorb it quicker. We call it also lemon tech. And then you ingest it, and then you lay down and you put on an eye mask, and then also music starts. So as I just mentioned, with the thalamocortical filtering, your senses are really heightened. So we really want to, close your eyes so you don't focus on anything outward, but really inward. And the music is a super important guide to move you through phases. And your facilitator, your coach, will be sitting right next to you the entire time. So in case you need to go to the bathroom, have a question, you want to talk, they're always there. But first and foremost, they're there to hold the space. And for people who've never done it, they're like, but why is a person there? Why do you need a person? What is holding space, really? But when you do a psychedelic journey, you will understand, how we're sitting here. I feel you. I feel your energy. You feel mine, right? And that's where we can actually relax, and where we can, really let go. And that's such a big part of the journey, of a psychedelic journey. And
how long is it, the journey?
So the journey, the onset is around about 1 to 1.5 hours, pretty steep. And then you can decide usually if you want to have a booster. So if you want to go a little higher, depends, also tolerance varies, right? And then the whole journey, you peak around about after 2 hours. And then the whole journey rounds about 6 to 8 hours, depending on the dose and if you took a booster. And then you feel it taper off, as you really feel like, it's getting less. Like a lot of people say they have tingly feelings. For some people, the truffle makes you a little nauseous, especially if you haven't eaten in the morning. But very, very open, very light. But of course, not every journey is light and happy peppy, right? But here I also want to say, especially with journeys where there is a little turbulence, where there might be, moments of dis-ease, these are the most healing.
Okay.
Because you saw this, you faced something negative and you overcame it. And that's also why the coach is so important. And after that, it tapers off, you have light breakfast, and ideally, you know, because you're still high, you're still in this space, so we don't really want you to talk that much, so we really invite silence, but the coach stays with you. And then you go to bed, and then ideally you journal also if something comes up, or if you want to journal, and then the next day you talk with your coach about it. You know, what happened, what did you see, and that's it for the in-person part. And then what then happens is my most favorite part, which is integration, which is the part after your psychedelic journey. And here, especially also now, I mean, that's the angle that Kinisi takes. It's for founders, CEOs, executives. We are big on leveraging neuroplasticity. Okay. So after psychedelic trip, your neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire and reorganize is extremely high for around about 1 month. So habits that you want to get rid of or that you want to instill are easier to implement. Okay. You can, you know, we're like your accountability buddies, and we help you really design or get rid of things that you want to have, and shape your next month, and really not just next month, but your potentially your life.
Yeah, do you have any examples of habits that were changed, like quit smoking, for example? I guess.
Oh
is a
yeah,
big one, yeah.
Quit smoking, quit alcohol. I mean, habits, you know, it really depends on what your intention is. Like some people quit junk food, or, you know, stop eating junk food, but some people also start a gym habit, or make it a habit to call their grandparents or their parents once a week. So it's really about what you want to instill, and really the amount of what you can instill is unlimited. Really, it just really depends on what you want to do. Yeah. But I one thing that I really want to highlight here is that a lot of things that we can't predict happen. For me, for example, I was smoking before. After my first psychedelic journey, I stopped smoking. I didn't even want to stop. Now I can't. Okay. I didn't want to stop.
Why? Because it was felt negatively afterwards, or like you got.
I'm really disgusted now. Okay. And that's the thing. Like, we don't know a lot. Like, we still don't know many things about the functioning. But one of the, like, how I always say in a very simplified form, or my explanation is, psychedelics strip away all the conditioning and all the, like, stories we tell about ourselves. Plus, what we actually know is that it really helps with addiction. So some circuits in your brain or some pathways are disrupted. So my connection to, cigarette, I like, disrupted, gone, don't like it anymore.
Super interesting. Yeah. And again, we don't know exactly what is bad for us, but your mind will tell you as well.
But and that's deep-rooted wisdom. Our body knows what's good and what's bad.
There's a good book on this, The Body Keeps Score.
Yeah, Bessel van der Kolk, yes. And he's an absolute legend in this space. And that's also where I actually found my I would really say my home with somatic work. Yeah, it's fundamental to everything I do now. Yeah. And somatic is soma is the body, and body work, really movement.
Very cool. Yeah. So just to recap, like the full journey will be like you have a long preparation at the beginning, then you have the full journey experience with coaching and guidance as well. And then you have the big part on the integration as well. That's the biggest importance.
Integration, and integration can last. For me, integration is a way of being, right? And you can integrate every learning. You can integrate just making it your own and weaving it into your life. But the time frame we set is 1 month. Ideally, it's longer.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. And you touched on this a bit earlier, but do you think it can as well help leaders see themselves more clearly? From a leadership perspective, you see, like any high achievers or leaders or founders or creator, can they use this kind of therapy to see themselves more clearly?
Beautiful question, and yes, that's my home turf. To say it shortly, big disclaimer, again, it's not for everyone, right? Okay. So you have to be medically cleared before going into something like this. But if we say you are and you're like a good candidate, then absolutely. I mean, you know, there are so many use cases psychedelics are beneficial for, but I found them especially beneficial for leaders, founders, especially the ones who've been building for a very long time, right? So, I mean, you specifically asked about leadership.
Yes.
Leadership. Okay. So for leadership, psychedelics, and when I say psychedelics, I primarily mean mushroom. I'm actually always referring to mushrooms or psilocybin, and your empathy increases. Your empathy for yourself and for your environment increases. So you can attune better to others. You can be a better leader because you can see what the other feel what the other person needs better. And also, leadership is, in my opinion, all about knowing thyself.
Okay.
And you know, if you have huge blind spots, you're never going to be the leader you want to be. So for me, leadership really starts with leading yourself, and this starts with looking where you maybe don't want to look, and that happens a lot of times in journeys.
And what about creativity? Because I've heard some people are going to choose this direction to try to unlock some type of creativity, like founders and people who are building startups. They're trying those kind of substance to unlock and find a new wave or what's coming, or the creative element to it. What do you say on this?
So the like I said before, the flooding or the reduction of the default mode network, that actually what happens in the brain, and there's a beautiful graph, I think it'd be nice to show that also, is your like brain areas that usually never speak to each other are finally but can speak to each other in these moments. So you have extremely high cognitive flexibilities, which means your experience or things you've thought about, you can now connect in different ways. You're connecting the dots that you've been building before, and it just helps you to think differently. It helps you to zoom out, to snap out and get a bird's eye perspective for things. So it's very much used in creativity work. And I mean, Silicon Valley, right?
I've heard of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was on LSD, I think. Or something
exactly. Like Steve Jobs, I mean, Steve Jobs is the most prominent example, but many in Silicon Valley, the legend goes that most Silicon Valley is built on people microdosing.
Is it?
Yeah. So it's really like there is something to it. And here, disclaimer again, like microdosing is a whole different topic, but it is very powerful for creativity work. Different
from the full journey. It's or is it one and another, like microdosing or full dosing? Is it one another, or is it can be both, or what's
so people? You mean that you do a big journey and then afterwards to microdosing? Yes. Many people do that.
Or people who only microdose and they don't do a full dose.
Correct. Yeah. So many people actually do at least I know. I mean, I'm in the bubble, and I know many that do microdosing. And here also, I mean, the evidence on microdosing is not consistent at all. Like really, there are no studies out there yet that actually can make sophisticated claims. However, there's a huge body of anecdotal evidence, and also in my circle. Of also especially founders with burnout, getting out of burnout with microdosing.
Could be a placebo.
Could be.
But
could be, but yeah, I know multiple. So
yeah, okay, no, interesting, and yeah. So you mentioned about founders, about high performers, about like I want as well to come back to this notion of control, okay, and why is it so relevant for founders, executive, and people who are building things as well? Why is it so important to do this kind of work? Could be with substance, could be without substance as well, but why is it so important to go through this journey of self-reflection as well? What do you think of this?
I have so much to say to this. And I think I'm going to say something controversial.
There you go.
But in my experience, in my personal experience, most founders, serious founders, been in for a long time, and entrepreneurs, CEOs that go far have experienced more trauma than the general population.
Okay.
And when I say trauma here, do you know the difference between small T trauma and big T trauma?
For me, no, it's a trauma itself.
Yeah. So really cool distinction. There's the small T trauma,
Okay.
which is basically everyday, like every one of us carries trauma, right?
Okay.
But were emotionally neglected, you were bullied, or so, and then there's big T trauma, sexual abuse, many things, especially pertaining to childhood, war, the like really objectively catastrophic things. And in my observation, founders have more of this big T trauma compared to the general population. And why I'm saying this right now is because big trauma is destabilizing. Trauma derails you. It destabilizes you. And if you have drive, if you have control, if you can, manage something, you are outwardly fixing the chaos that is inside of you.
Okay.
You have a grip, you have the control on the outside. And that, builds insane companies. That is a lot of success, right? But is it also your emotional well-being? I don't think so. So
interesting, because I feel as well that you can reach us kind of help with coaches, with therapy, with of course as well with it could be with substances or without substances. But this kind of the main pattern I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this element of self-reflection, knowing yourself better, and dealing with your own stuff, if I don't want to swear here, to make sure you can, if you want to manage outside, you need to manage inside.
correct.
And I think that's very important for any leaders, or actually anyone.
For anyone to not just, like I said, I mean, I have this slogan, I have had it on my wall for like ever. In order to be a great leader, you have to lead yourself first. And it's not just about leadership and aligning people, moving towards the shared mission, but it's also about your physical and emotional health, and the physical and emotional health of your surroundings, of your loved ones. Because if you're dysregulated, your surrounding will be dysregulated
It
as
will have
well.
some impact.
100%. We're social animals, right?
That's interesting. And so I understand everyone needs to do this work because of self-reflection and as well. Yeah, that's where I wanted to go, because I've heard this notion of people who are using substances are called psychonauts. And I love this notion because you have the astronaut who are going to the moon, and then you have the psychonaut, the one which are going into into your, it's a journey in your psyche. I don't say
Yeah.
it. What do you say on this?
Yeah, I also like the term psychonaut. At the same time, I think the psychonaut also pertains to people that, you go inward, yes, but you also go somewhere where we can't explain, right? And psychonauts, I mean, I don't know what the clear definition of a psychonaut is, but if you have a certain high enough dose, a lot of times we talk about ego dissolution, like you just float in space, literally. That is the feeling. I mean, a lot of times you can't also explain these things are called ineffable experiences.
Okay.
Ineffable means not to be put in words. You can't describe it. And interestingly, ineffable experience are the most healing. And here we also touch on spirituality, because in these moments you understand, or you feel that your body is something, but you are also somewhere else, right? So there is this, like, you're really dancing on a barrier of what is and what isn't.
That's I've done some breath work, holotropic breath work, and I felt this kind of line between the science, your body control, and the spirituality. When you start to experience different things, you start to see or talk to people, and your mind start to talk to you as well. And I don't know, it was very hard to, because I'm a very big skeptic on this. I was a very big skeptic on this until I saw the how powerful it can be, and I was like, oh, we have no freaking clue of what's going on.
Exactly.
We are just touching the top of the iceberg. But if you go into your mind, it's just mind blowing. That's my experience behind it. And you
Beautiful.
mentioned about the dose, and depending on the dose that you take, you may have different experience. What's the typical dose? And can you expand a bit more into the experience on I think it's called the heroic dose, like when you go into a big one. But like start with the microdose, the dose, and then the big dose.
Okay, so since we are talking about mushrooms and truffles, we also can differentiate between fresh mushroom and dry mushroom, and fresh truffle and dry truffle. So don't quote me on any of these specifically, and we can put the conversions also in the show notes.
Yeah.
But I'm talking now about dry mushroom.
Okay.
Dry mushroom, roundabout stuff. If you do it for the first time, I always prefer to go on a lower dose for people who do it the first time, because you just never know. You can always, do a little redose, but I always prefer to go lower, which would be around about 1.5 gram to 2 gram.
Okay.
Usually people would say, I think usually it's 2.5 gram, but I prefer a little lower, dried mushroom. That's a journey. A hero's journey, we say, is 5 gram and above.
Okay.
But this is also highly dependent on how potent is the mushroom, because we don't know, unless you really take synthetically synthesized psilocybin, then you know. And your constitute, how much do you tolerate? Like, I have so little tolerance. Like, if I take a fourth of a microdose, I feel it properly, right?
So you won't recommend people to jump straight to 5?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
No. And a microdose would be a tenth, official, like a tenth of a full dose. And here, what is a full dose for you? And then for me, it would not be a tenth, but a fourth of a tenth.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you were saying you don't recommend the heroic dose to anyone just starting on
Correct.
starting.
Yeah. I warn against it. Yeah, really. It can be so way too overwhelming. Of course, if some people can handle it, I would say majority of people can't. So don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of some people just losing sense of self and just losing the sense that they took something. And if you don't have any guide, or if they do it by themselves, it can be quite dangerous, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, and coming back to set and setting, right? If you are not in a safe environment with somebody you trust, you can really easily spiral, and this can also trigger psychosis in certain people. And once you had a psychosis, there's no way back. So it's like I said, it's really dangerous if done wrong. Yeah.
So you're also quite focused on the preparation. Of course, I'm not saying like you guys do a heroic dose, and I understand that's not something that you do, but you really focus on the preparation, which is a very important part, and as well the integration post journey. And why is it so important, this kind of preparation and integration as well? That's key, I guess, now.
Yeah, it's so important because it readies your mind and your system and your environment. Like we also do in preparation, we also always mention about your social circle. One of the biggest predictors if a journey is going to be, beneficial for a long time is also your social connections and the what happens when you go home and how safe you are there. And in the preparation, I always say it's like you create a mental map of your topics. And when you're in the journey, which is basically just opens, so when it's a catalyst, but the journey itself, the substance itself doesn't do anything, it just opens a window. And if you did preparation properly, you have a map, and then you can put the pins into the map, right? And connect the dots.
In your mind.
Yeah. And the integration is really bringing all of that back home. integrating it into your life. And also very important to note, the research also just found out that a lot of the aha moments, many people do it to have breakthroughs, right? But a lot of the aha moments come in the days and weeks after the journey, not during the journey. So
why is that? Why is it
we don't
after?
know.
You don't know.
I don't know, but your brain is still recalibrating.
Making sense, trying to make sense of what happened. Yeah.
Exactly, and like the heightened neuroplasticity, like your brain is really in the phase of extreme potential to reorder and recalibrate, and there things just happen, and then you walk, or like you have certain triggers. You walk on the street, and all of a sudden you remember something like So that's also why it's so important to have a structured process for integration, so you also create the space for these things to come. So don't go back to work immediately after a psychedelic journey. Don't, rush back in, because it will be just, first of all, most likely overwhelming for your system. And second, you are cutting the potential to receive more of these aha moments.
I see. And you also mentioned quite a few times during this recording that you will not recommend psychedelic to everyone, and who should stay away from psychedelic work. Like who literally you say like, no, you're not a good fit.
They're the most obvious ones, which are if you are bipolar or schizophrenic, or have that in your immediate family, or if you have cardiovascular problems. So these are like the main things. And other than that, there are, like I said, also environmental factors, like where are you in your life right now? But also, are you on antidepressants? Are you taking other are you taking other medications? So that's why it's so important to have a medical screening, because an MD will tell you yes or no based on all their life's experience.
Interesting. What questions should people ask their guide or coach before the journey, as well to understand if they are ready or not, or as well to understand like if the guide is not a scammer, if he's not he's a real shaman or a real guide and so on. Any question that you would recommend here?
Oh yeah, very important. So I would clearly always just work with people in my field of recommendation, like if I have a direct recommendation, because it's really hard to know. But I would, if there's no recommendation you have in your immediate surroundings, then I would always ask for references. I would always ask, can I call a client of yours and have a conversation with that person? For how long have you been doing this? What is your background? Ideally, that person has a background in therapy. Ideally, it's not always the case. And I would also just ask, how many times have you facilitated? But here you have to trust that the answer of this person is correct. That they don't scam you. So I think really making these reference calls is very important. And there are certain websites where you can actually already see people listed, with a huge caveat, and this is also why we're building Standard. People right now on especially European, actually global websites are listed. They're not checked. It's just you set up your own profile. Of course, you're going to say great things about yourself, right? But what we are building at Standard is really we verify each practitioner that you will see on our website against a 4-layer framework to be approved.
So I guess company like yours will as well pre-select those kind of guides as well, and make the reference check and so on this, to ensure like quality or this kind of thing.
Correct, because safety is the number one priority in this industry, and it's not given right now.
No, that's important. Yeah, that's that's interesting. And is there anything around psychedelic space that people are not talking about? Like something like, I understand like there's a big stigma, there's a lot of taboo, but do you think is there any angle that people are not honest about psychedelic?
How dangerous it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there is, especially in the psychedelic bubble, you always hear about, the success stories, treating PTSD, treating depression, having this breakthrough, but you don't hear about all the cases that go wrong. So, yeah, that is for me the biggest problem also, because few people speak about that.
So it's dangerous. It's
It
important
is.
to
It is.
mention.
It is really dangerous, but it is also very powerful if done right.
Powerful can be two-sided.
Correct.
Powerful negative or powerful
Yeah.
positive as well.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And that's also like psychedelics are non-specific amplifiers.
Mm.
That means they amplify whatever is there right now,
Okay.
down or up.
Yeah. And where do you draw the line between coaching, therapy, and the medicine? Do you have a line between those three, or is it? Is it
You mean in the context of a person wanting to do a journey?
Yeah.
So coaching, like we said, therapy is really with a therapist. In psychedelic assisted therapy, you can only do in a clinical setting so far. So, let's say we say it's about the person. It's an individual that can safely guide you. It's a synergy between the medicine and the person guiding you. But I would say you should always have a person there that you trust and that guides you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you feel psychedelic can be called a new medicine?
Clearly, it is. It is called a medicine. There are thousands of cases where people are treated for depression, anxiety, substance use disorder, really especially with a substance called ibogaine. People are healed, treated all over the world, that especially the depression case, right, that have been using antidepressants that have all other sides of contraindications. I'm not bashing on them. Like, it's really important that we have these types of medications, but if there's an alternative that gets you off taking something for every day of your life, then I think it is worth looking into it. And we see this happening all over the world.
That's interesting. And what do you think the future look like for psychedelic? Do you think it's positive, or it's not going in the right direction?
For round about 15 years, we have been in a phase that's called psychedelic renaissance, because very long there has been a ban, or almost like a ban, to do research on these substances. Maybe it's interesting to know it's called the war on drugs, which basically was initiated by the Nixon administration back in the US, because the Vietnam War was going on and people were starting to use LSD. And then they felt so connected and they were like, okay, wow, we're one society, we're one planet, right? We don't want to go to war. And that didn't work for the administration, right? So there was a huge, this is all public knowledge now, right? And since then there have been bans on researching on these substances, and hence it has been pushed back for so many years. But now, like in the 2000s, especially 2010s, it increased again, the research. And Trump 2 or 3 weeks ago signed an executive order. I'm very cautious about anything that Trump does, but it is a huge legitimization that the president of the United States in the Oval Office speaks about psychedelics in a healing capacity, in a medicine capacity. And that in itself, I find very positive. We don't know how it's going to materialize, but that in and of itself, I find brilliant.
I've heard about the war on drugs that you mentioned. I think it was a documentary on Netflix as well, books on Michael Pollan.
Yeah.
And I found that it was because there's a science behind. And it's not only about recreational drugs, but there's a full story and a full science behind all those kind of substances. And funny enough, if I'm not wrong, LSD was created in Zurich, or was it in Basel? Basel?
Albert Hoffmann, yeah.
Yeah. Where was it, in Zurich or Basel?
I think Basel, yeah.
Basel, yeah.
Switzerland for sure.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
But you don't think about those kind of compounds being created in Switzerland.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
no, not at all. And actually, there was just Bicycle Day. I don't know if you know that. It's like it's called Bicycle Day because Albert Hoffmann, he synthesized it and took it. And it was a very high dose. Like, he had no idea, right? But then he rode back home his bicycle and was, like in a crazy dimension. So there's every year, I forgot the date now, but it's in April. honoring that.
Yeah, no, I think like there's so you're thinking the future of psychedelic looks promising. It's maybe still slow, but promising.
It's promising, and it has never been more promising. I mean, in the beginning, I mentioned the compassionate use program. In Germany, we're seeing regulations changing. In the Czech Republic, Australia is already on the forefront. Switzerland is in Europe the #1 country that has been doing this for, I think, 10, 20 years. Something they're really, when it comes to psychedelic assisted therapy, we're seeing a lot of changes now, and at an unprecedented rate, and research coming out at an unprecedented rate, and I'm very optimistic.
And for you, what's your vision? Where do you see this field in 10 years?
My personal vision is that every person that needs alternative treatment that might include psychedelics has access and can afford it in a safe way.
Interesting. Are you saying that today the psychedelic therapy is only reserved to a certain class level because it's actually quite expensive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very.
So to make it more popular and more affordable.
Yeah, to make it mainstream. But I don't like the word mainstream because for me that doesn't include safety. Make it safely available and accessible to the people in need, and a lot of the times the people in need are those who cannot afford it.
Do you see a future where you go to the apotheke, what do you call it, the pharmacy, and you can buy mushrooms?
I would not hope for that.
Okay, why
because
not?
then the abuse potential I think would still be high. I think you should be able to do it in a safe setting, because for me, if you want to use them in a therapeutic way, you cannot separate this from a therapeutic or from a coaching process, and that always includes another person and a setting.
Or a doctor office, like a guide office where you
Correct.
go and.
I mean, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and more on the practical way as we are ramping up we are closing the podcast. More on a practical way, and for curious listening today, just you can answer quite fast. So one misconception about psychedelic that you have in mind?
That it's a quick fix.
That is a quick fix. Okay, it's not a quick fix.
No. For people who think it might be a quick fix and they take it, it might even make things worse because they see the things that they're unwilling to see in reality.
Okay. One misconception about coaching.
That the coach has to tell you what to do.
They don't tell you anything?
No.
Because you have to do the work yourself.
Yeah. They should just hold the space.
Okay. And one practice that you will recommend everyone listening to do now?
Daily practice, something daily, like practical.
Practice, yeah.
My all-time favorite, and makes a lot of people cringe, is shaking. Shaking. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, stressed, when things are just too much, it's most likely because your system is stagnating and you're stuck in a rigid. Get up, shake for 10 seconds, 50
What do you mean
seconds.
shake?
Should I share?
Shake?
Yeah. Should I?
Yeah, shake. Okay.
Yeah.
Jump and shake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shaking, because you don't hear me.
Yeah.
That is a prime somatic reset for you. And I want to share a story here, like how did we find out, you also find it in The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. How did we find out about it? Researchers were observing, maybe I'm saying the wrong animal now, but like I think antelopes in the desert that were hunted by lions. And imagine you're an antelope being hunted by a lion. You think you're gonna die. Your nervous is, and when the antelopes could flee, like they survived, researchers saw that they were shaking.
Okay.
They started to shake. And a couple of moments later, they were again with the other antelopes, like nothing has happened. And then research on this started. And a good shake, 10 seconds, or put on your favorite song. A good shake has a tremendous power to ground you and to just make you go through your life in a way way more grounded and stable way.
Super interesting. I was expecting like a meditation or breathwork. Like, no, let's shake. Okay, let's go. I was scared that you were going to like, let's all take mushroom every day.
Oh no!
Don't do that.
No.
So
A
just
good shake. Good shake. If a listener takes away one thing of this episode, shake. Really shake. Do it in the bathroom. Do it when between a call. You will see the benefits. Yeah.
Okay. Let's shake. And what do you think about journaling? Do you have like one journal question that you will focus people on?
We didn't even talk about my protocols.
Wait. We can go there.
So,
I know that you shake. I know that you shake on a daily basis.
So what I love, and this is not invented by me, but it's a practice that's called morning pages. Mm-hmm. So I forgot her last name, Julie. It's like a really great, the artist within, Julie something. And basically there she says, every morning just take a journal and just write whatever comes to your mind. Okay. And we talked about emptying the trash can before. For me, this is really a way of emptying the trash can. I just take my journal and write. I don't prompt because that's too directive again. I just give out whatever comes out in that moment. And that is very cleansing to me.
Okay. So it's a way to clean the trash, but just like clean your mind in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or another, actually one by Carl Jung that I love, but this is more for people that maybe have been doing this a little longer, is journaling, is what do you want to bring to this world? What do you want to birth to this world?
Super cool. And for anyone listening, if they want to learn more about psychedelic, about coaching, about you or anything, like what do you recommend? Any resources, any websites? What do you recommend here?
Yeah, so for sure you can just follow me on LinkedIn, right? I post quite a bit about all these things, Sophie J Spitzer. And so there are great resources online already, but one that I always recommend is Maps, because it's pretty big. Mm-hmm. Maps, but also, you have many research institutions that's publicate, but one of my favorites, and this is also now positioning the company that I'm with, Pink Elephant, is States of Mind. So statesofmind.com is a platform where you get the latest research, the latest really translating psychedelics for psychedelic curious. So statesofmind.com, and you find great articles, great resources there.
Okay. And my last question. Yes. If you had a big billboard in the middle of Vienna or Berlin or Lisbon, where anyone could read on this kind of billboard, what would you put on it?
You are enough.
You are enough. I love it. Excellent. But we're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed the conversation. Again, I was very curious to hear more about this topic, more to understand and being curious about this topic that we keep hearing on a lot of different media and podcasts and so on. And I've learned a lot, so thank you so much. Now I know that I'm going to shake more.
Yes.
But yeah, for everyone listening, thank you for being here. You see, like a psychedelic and coaching and therapy can be very healing. That's also very important to mention. It can be very dangerous. So that's something which we should never forget. But this kind of self-reflection, this kind of self-work to make sure we are okay, and we are all, as you mentioned, you are enough, we are enough. But we also need to do this kind of work internally. I think that's very important and very powerful. So that would be the first step towards this journey. But thanks again for being here, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.